Number 10. George Washington never actually cut down the cherry tree. Most people believe that the first president of the United States, George Washington, cut down a cherry tree, and in truth, he really didn't. In reality, it was actually just a myth or a little emphasis that was put into Charles Dewberry's biography on him to captivate his readers. Number 9. The Thatchers were related to Blackbeard. Believe it or not, Margaret and Dan Thatcher, the former prime ministers of the United Kingdom, were actually related to the bloodthirsty pirate Edward Thatch, or Blackbeard. It was originally thought that Blackbeard's last name was Teach, but in reality it was actually Thatch, which was just recently discovered, or in the 1980s. Because of this, Thatch, when she got married to her husband, was named Thatch. But, so as not to have the same last name as this blood-curdling pirate, she changed her name to Thatcher. Number 8. Aristotle was a fraud. Many historians were very confused about this question for a long time. Aristotle has written volumes and volumes and volumes of novels and books and complexes and theorems in his entire lifespan of only 62 years. And he's only learned how to write at age 21, which means how many books as he wrote, he couldn't have written them in that span. Most historians believe that when Aristotle went on his trips to the newly discovered continent of Africa, he might have stolen certain books and material from African wise men who wrote their theorems, and then published them as his own work. Number 7. Alexander the Great was not from Greece. Many people think that Alexander the Great was from Greece, and that Alexander's empire, the empire he created, was the Greek Empire. But actually, both of these are false. First off, Alexander the Great was not from Greece. He was from a region in the Balkan area of modern-day parts of Greece, Albania, Macedonia, and Bulgaria called Thrace. He started from Thrace, but first started his empire by successfully combining the city-states of Greece. That is why he is mostly quoted as a Greek. Number 6. Cleopatra was not a pharaoh. Many people think that Cleopatra was a pharaoh, or the supreme ruler of the Egyptians. Technically she was, but she wasn't actually the title of pharaoh. Cleopatra was considered a queen, for at the time she was ruling a province of Macedonia's, or Alexander the Great's, former empire. So Egypt was technically not an independent state, and during her rule it was invaded by the Romans. Now, pharaohs, or the title pharaoh, ended in the 300s BC, about 300 years before she was born, when Alexander the Great invaded Egypt and ended their empire. Number 5. Yugoslavia existed before the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Now, I'm sorry that I couldn't find a picture of medieval Yugoslavia, the one that I am talking about. For Yugoslavia actually began and was a lot bigger than the Yugoslavia that was created after the end of World War II and the Ottoman War. for the Yugoslavia that existed from about 500 CE to 900 CE was the lands of back the second Yugoslavia, Romania, Hungary, parts of Eastern Europe, and half of southern Russia, making it one of the biggest kingdoms in medieval times. Now, Yugoslavia ended after the Manetese period, or the first part of the Dark Ages, ended. But Yugoslavia was then reformed by the United States and other countries after the Ottoman Empire ended in 1922. That ended up becoming its own dictatorship, and Brazil was not first occupied by Portugal in 1992. As you see here, parts of Brazil were actually first colonized in the 15 and 1600s by the Netherlands, or Holland, as some people refer to it. What happened is, though, in the 1600s, Holland, or the Netherlands, ended up getting into serious debt and couldn't afford to maintain the immense amount of land that Brazil had. So, most people, though, who are from the Netherlands believe that they immediately repented afterwards and felt it as a grave mistake, traded Brazil to Portugal for about $7 million, which in today's worth is about $755 million. Number 3. Julius Caesar was not the emperor of Rome. Despite the controversy about this, Julius Caesar, by history, was not technically the emperor of Rome. Though technically he was, you could consider him technically an emperor, for he did spread Rome from just the mainlands of modern-day Italy to parts of France, southern Europe, northern Africa, and more. He technically was still known as a first consul, or basically as you refer to as almost like a president, just a bit more powerful. And he didn't really have the main title as emperor yet. He actually wanted to, in 44 BCE, proclaim himself the head dictator and proclaim Rome from the Roman Republic, as it was referred to when he was ruling it, to the Roman Empire. However, some legislators or senators didn't like this because the Senate would be abolished, so they had him executed. The Roman Empire was not Vladimir Putin until 27 BCE, when his son... Now, this explains a lot. Gaius Julius Caesar, or Caesar Augustus, Vladimir Putin became emperor, was the great-grandson proclaim it an empire. Known mystifier, magic, or secret healer, and wizard to the Romanov family, Grigory Rasputin. What happened is that, at age of 18, Putin changed his name, for he was actually born Vladimir Rasputin. He changed his name to Putin, cut off the Ras, as to not bear the same name as a man who was alleged to be the devil. Number 1. The story that people thought the world was flat before Columbus was a myth. This is actually true. Despite what you learned in history class or from any other source, people in Columbus's day and Columbus himself knew that the world wasn't flat. That theory was actually proposed, not incorrect, by Aristotle.